Earlier this week, Serious Parody released the first Q&A regarding their upcoming PSN exclusive title, 5 Star Wrestling, in which they claim the game most resembles that of the N64 game WCW vs NWO World Tour, which was developed by AKI and published by THQ prior to the fan favourite release WWF No Mercy. Dan Hinkles, the CEO of Serious Parody, notes the reason for the comparison is that WCW vs NWO was a game that really focused on the gameplay, which allowed AKI to perfect that core aspect of the game before shifting the focus to other areas. This is the same approach that 5 Star had taken, and as Dan noted in his example with Midway's TNA Impact, had that game been given the time to focus on gameplay and adding moves that really should have been in there from the start, such as the ankle lock, instead of trying to incorporate create modes and online play, then that game would have had much longer lasting appeal. However, because they didn't focus on the gameplay first and instead added create modes and online play, the sheer lack of moves and the gameplay limitations meant players who played those modes were then stuck with those limitations after creating their own character or taking the fight online. Speaking of moves and limitations, this is something that 5 Star Wrestling should not suffer from, with news in the Q&A that the game will feature the vast majority of move positions that were seen in WWF No Mercy, along with the added bonus that each wrestler will have more moves per wrestler than No Mercy. That's more than 150 moves per wrestler. And fear not, although a lot of people were disappointed that the game would not feature a create mode, when addressing the question what kind of DLC will we see in the future, it was revealed that nothing is ruled out. Therefore, there's still the possibility that a create mode could be added at a later stage, as the DLC plans are bigger for this than anything we've previously seen in a wrestling game. The main reason for the DLC plans is that instead of producing a sequel, all of the new additions will be added to the current game in the form of DLC, meaning you only need to purchase the game once and then choose which DLC you want to add when it's released. This means that over time the game will grow to become one of the biggest wrestling games ever seen, with new characters and modes keeping it fresh throughout and no more waiting a full year for a sequel. Finally, when addressing the roster, it was restated that the game will only consist of original characters, with a comparison made to Pro Evolution Soccer, which doesn't hold licensing deals like FIFA and therefore lacks the real names of players. This, however, isn't such a bad thing, as it means that characters won't need to be removed from the game if deals cannot be struck, which is one of the reasons that we don't get the option to import past rosters into current WWE games, as a lot of those wrestlers from past games are no longer under contract and deals would need to be reached with them in order to import them into the current game, as it's outside the deal that they would have signed previously for that past game. An example of this is with Legends of WrestleMania, which is the only WWE title so far that allowed players to import the roster from SmackDown vs Raw 2009, but seen the likes of the Big Daddy V and Paul London unable to be imported as they were no longer under contract to WWE. Getting back on track, it's clear that 5 Star Wrestling is trying something new and innovative with this title, and that the team behind the game are dedicated wrestling fans that are trying to put together a game that will not only appeal to the older hardcore fans that grew up on the likes of No Mercy, but also cater for casual players and bring in a whole new generation to that No Mercy style gameplay. Regardless of the fact we're talking about a small developer, this is definitely something that fans should be excited to try when it comes out later this summer.